This is June 28th, 2016, Edible Acres. Doing a video here at the kind of towards the middle of, hopefully near the end of, what's been a pretty sizable drought for our area. For any of you that are living in the Finger Lakes area, you know what I'm talking about. This year so far has been pretty intensely warm and sunny, windy, breezy, and incredibly little amounts of rain. And so I wanted to take a look at what our permaculture garden, propagation space, demo garden, etc. looks like. This is year 8 now, and this is what it looks like to have a perennial dominant farm that's dependent exclusively on rainwater for irrigation. So the area we're going to go take a look is dependent entirely on this single tote for any direct watering that I do. And you can see we're keeping careful and keeping reserve. It's about 2/3 full, and I'm doling it out very slowly. But if we look at, you can see there's a mushroom yard here. Anyway, if we look at this system from the idea of a commitment to predominantly hardy, long-lived perennial plants of really high structural and species diversity, planted at very high density, so basically mimicking dense wild feral hedgerows, working with hardy things that are known to do well here, and mulching deeply, it looks as though there's no drought, which is pretty awesome. All these plants are very valuable to me through my nursery, and also just because they're valuable plants to me. Just to give you some ideas of, if I dug into it in detail, it would take a whole lot of time, but just one little snapshot. You've got Angelica, Carpathian walnut, Nanking cherries in there. There's an overstory of a pollarded black locust, and to the north of that is autumn olive, and to the north of that are raspberries that are creeping out into the yard. An understory of good King Henry. There's a nice cultivar red currant here. Who else do we have in here? A bunch of different varieties of black currants. There's lovage as my taprooter, dynamic accumulator, pollinator support plant, teeming over everybody. And if I get into a real panic or really run out of water, I can chop and drop those leaves to take care of things like my potato onions, which are a little bit more shallow rooted and a little bit more susceptible. And that's just on the way into the garden. Just take a little look in here. I'm feeling really excited about, for the sake of the plants, I'd really like good drenching deep rain. We're probably 3 to 6 inches behind for this month. But this is an interesting test of these systems, and as you can see, it just is really doing it. Anywhere that there's no bare soil, the plants are mixed together in high diversity, and there's mulch anywhere in between them. Nobody's batting an eye with this scenario. Baby Nanking cherries, profusion sorrel, some new varieties of dwarf sour cherry, which will be managed up the fence and stool layered to propagate. We've got an overstory of a white mulberry that's providing some shade to all of this. Deep tap-rooted Turkish rocket drawing up nutrients, sheltering the soil from direct sun, giving me a seed load to harvest, again valuable for nursery purposes and just to learn from. And you can see this is a system that's replicating itself really hard and fast now. Nanking cherries are a very common seedling in this garden because early on we designed a fedge, a really solid wall of Nanking cherry just to the north of the garden. There's actually a fence in between. And so that sends seedlings in all the time, which is, again, super exciting for me as a nursery operator. The things that are a little bit limited or having issues, transplanted in small starts of honeyberry, they're faltering, but I come in and water those. Basically there's a hose that's buried that goes all the way over to the garden. I open up the valve on that main cistern and then dip into here. So it's a very slow and tedious, disincentivizing process to do this every day. So this garden has been getting spot watered, observation based, okay, the chard is drooping, let's water that. Lettuces, if they look okay, we're not going to water them. So it's basically on an as-needed basis. And most of this is getting none. These beds are built up so high, there's so much charcoal in there, and the soil hasn't had a chance to age for 6+ years in some of these beds, and so they're just performing. You can see a real common theme, if there's a pattern in this garden, it's a focus on making sure there are deep taprooted dynamic accumulators involved in every bed. So there are areas where wild lettuces or cultivar seedling lettuces show up where I didn't design them in. They're more than welcome. If we get tons of rain and I need the light, I'll take them out. Likewise, the borage, the kales, those are tucked in and amongst Nanking cherry seedlings, Brianna apricot seedlings, and they're helping to draw up moisture and really protect that soil. A little bed of thyme doing its job. These are seedling Brianna apricots coming into just their second year. Looking really nice. This is a wonderfully hardy tree. It shows very little water stress. Some of the absolute winners during this drought. Turkish rocket, absolutely stellar performance. It hasn't drooped at all. You can see balloon flower hanging out behind it. These are some more dwarf sour cherries, stool layering and promoting suckering so that I can take divisions from them. Another incredible winner during this drought is our sea kale. How exquisite is that? Such substantial leaves, those roots go so deep. 90, 92 degree day, sun blazing on it, doesn't droop at all. So eventually when we have enough of this plant going, it will also be a chop and drop leaf mulch. My yasta berries start wilting in August. Well, great, maybe we can harvest some sea kale and use that as a side dressing to help protect the soil there. You get the idea. It seems as though it's pure chaos, but everything in here, I wouldn't say it's designed in advance, but it's designed itself over time. And it fits. It all really works well. Most of the weeds, air quote, are all things that are useful to me and have value through the nursery. So that's a pretty nice scenario at this point. And again, you can see where beds were kind of lost to weediness early in the season. Maybe grasses got in or escaped garlic. Sometimes it's just thick layers of burlap sacks and hay. And here you can see lots of burlap sacks put around these young transplants of hardy kiwi that we're stool layering. Tons of wood chip. When we get back into a rainy time, I can top these off with a thick layer of compost and seed them to a fall annual crop. And or wait till the fall and pull these burlap sacks back and put in hardwood cuttings, as was done in this bed. So these are all dormant hardwood cuttings that were stuck in the fall, October 15th of 2015, and you can see they're looking beautiful. This bed got not a single drop of water from me, and this was just installed last October. And most of these were, 6-inch or so cuttings of nice European elders, sea buckthorns, real fine cultivar pink currants, fantail willows in the back there. There's a whole bunch of black currants in that sort of scenario. Yastaberry. These are all hardwood cuttings from the fall, mulched deeply and left alone, and really thriving. Skirret's another true winner. It just seems to you'll almost never find a bug bite on it or anything. The flowers are beautiful, the roots taste amazing. Perennial is all get out. Really exciting crops. You can see the Turkish rocket all stump sprouting from where I dug up a bed of these last year. So root fragments definitely take. Be careful if you plant a lot of Turkish rocket and want to move it later. It's seeming to be a little like a comfrey. Fine by me, this is a very useful plant to have around. Now you can see we've got things like cultivar sea buckthorn in between two dwarf sour cherries. So this will send out roots and suckers, which I'll cut and lift. These will be stool mounded and also throw out suckers, and so we'll lift from there as well. In the meantime, the niche that annuals are meant to play are being played out. So for example, there's the kale. Here's a space where I lifted a ton of air potatoes and ground nuts this spring. Great, there's a gap. That's where the annuals belong. As I'm ready this fall, I'll fill this out with perennials and move it up through the lines of succession. So this used to be called the annual garden. And as is the way, if nature had its full way, it would transition all the way up through complexity into the tree layer. And so that's what we're doing here. There's no point to keep it in suspended succession indefinitely, because that has the least resiliency, the least diversity, and to me the least interest. So I'd rather facilitate and steward a really feral, insanely packed, hedgerow-esque garden. You basically have to bushwhack your way through food and valuable plants and medicine and all sorts of really interesting things. So this is what this system looks like. Again, $0 or near $0 budget for the most part. All human scale, no real significant inputs save for hay and wood chips. No fossil fuels needed for this, no irrigation involved. This is just from collected rainwater as needed. And this is what it looks like during the midst of what a friend of mine today said is on par to be the driest summer so far in this region in an incredibly long time. So, really pleased with what these systems just show themselves to want to be. Strong takeaway for me: the more I can mulch, the higher I can pack, the better off I'll be. So I'm going to lose some things this summer if we keep going this direction, but so far this garden's telling me it's going to be very, very little. The chard got droopy yesterday, so I might not get chard out of this system, but everybody else seems to be kicking it and killing it. Seabuck, dwarf sour cherry. I am so excited to be nomming on these in the years to come and see how to propagate these. They're so fast growing. I can just keep going on and on, so I'll stop here. Thank you for watching, and protect your soil. Pack it with those big, beautiful, deep tap-rooted plants, and mulch it like you mean it. Take care.